versus Brian C. Koberger. Notice of filing affidavit of Lee Larkin in support of defendant's third motion to compel. Comes now Brian C. Koberger by and through his attorney of record, Ann C. Taylor, public defender, and hereby files the attached affidavit of Lee Larkin in support of the defendant's third motion to compel, dated this 9th day of August 2023. Certificate of delivery. Okay. State of California, County of What? I can't even read that. Something. I am an adult over the age of 18 and I have personal knowledge of facts set forth in this affidavit. I have been engaged as an expert in the above entitled matters since July 27th, 2023. I am a genetic genealogist having practiced genetic genealogy since 2014. My educational background is a bachelor's degree in biology, a PhD in botany. My curriculum vitae is attached. I, as a genetic genealogist, have a clear understanding of how genetic genealogy works. I have developed tools that are in widespread use by genealogy practitioners. Genetic genealogy is best described as the use of DNA data to evaluate biological relationships. There are three categories of genealogical DNA tests: Y chromosome DNA, direct paternal line only, man, I'm going to mess some words up here. Mitochondrial DNA, direct material line only, and autosomal DNA, all branches of a pedigree. A genetic genealogist integrates information from these DNA tests with genealogical documentation to reveal or corroborate relationships.
Keep that in mind. Direct maternal line only.
Right.
Okay.
Genetic genealogy primarily uses autosomal DNA tests that were originally designed for biomedical research. Since 23andMe brought their health tests to the consumer market in late 2007, Family Tree DNA, Ancestry DNA, MyHeritage, and a handful of smaller companies have launched their own genetic genealogy products. These companies all provide genealogy tools to their customers on the websites and also produce a raw DNA data file that the customer can download. The raw data file contains the genetic profile for that customer. This genetic profile is not the same as an STR profile that is commonly uploaded to CODIS in a forensic DNA analysis.
Keep that in mind too.
Excuse me. Most of the human genome is identical across all people. Only the DNA positions that are vary between individuals are useful for genealogy. These variable positions are called single nucleotide polymorphisms, SNP, pronounced SNP. The direct-to-consumer genealogy companies used a type of test called a microarray that samples roughly 600,000 of these DNA SNMPs. Unlike the STR markers used for matching in CODIS, SNPs can convey information about medical and physical traits as well as biological relationships to close and distant cousins. Keep that in mind too. A microarray SNP profile is sometimes called a kit. Once the lab test is complete, the genealogy genealogy companies compares the new kit to those already in its database, looking for long stretches of SNPs that are compatible. The company then presents these matches in a list sorted by the amount of shared DNA measured in centomorgans, and that's what CC Morgan was talking about on the Presumption podcast.
Mm-hmm.
She was discussing those centomorgans. Uh, that's a good watch too. I'm gonna have to find that link and put it to you guys as I end the show, so you can watch that too. A standard DNA microarray requires approximately 200 ng of quality DNA squared. That quality and quantity is often not available from crime scenes or degraded human. Instead, specialized laboratories can generate a SNP profile through a more complex process. First, they attempt to sequence the entire genome using next generation sequencing (NGS) technology. This technology works a bit like skimming while reading a document. On the first pass, NGS technology will not capture all of the data and it may make mistakes. NGS involves repeated passes called coverage to get more accurate results. For human genome sequences, 30 times to 50 times coverage is recommended. Once the NG file is obtained, it must be manipulated through bioinformatics to make it compatible with genealogy databases. The extra data must be stripped out just the SMPs that the genealogy companies test, and missing or ambiguous data must be inferred using statistical methods. Interesting. The kit is then uploaded to a genealogy database and evaluated. A poor quality kit might have too few matches, or it might have phantom matches that are not real measures of relationship.
Keep that in mind too.
Often, the bioinformatics step must be repeated. This is a trial and error process which can take several tries to produce a kit that works well in a genealogy database. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, if you have a bunch of potholes in a road, they're using statistical methods to fill in those potholes.
Mm-hmm.
Only GED match, family tree DNA, and some smaller entities allow crime scene and human remain samples to be uploaded. The terms of service at Ancestry DNA, 23andMe, and MyHeritage prohibit forensic investigative genetic genealogy in their databases.
Did you read
However,
that? Read that
yeah,
again.
and that's why I always said that's why I think the FBI just said here's a name.
Mm-hmm.
This is why nobody made reports of how this is why the reports weren't offered, and is, in my opinion, is because of this right here. Because they had to use methods, because there is a little check mark that if you don't want it to be included, then you can make sure it's not included, and it's set up that way for a reason. And I think this is one of those reasons is why it was set up that way, because it prevents filling in potholes with statistical methods to create a road.
Now read the next sentence.
The term, let me see. However, in the absence of effective oversight, forensic genetic genealogists are on an honor system to obey the terms of service and the Department of Justice interim policy on forensic genetic genealogy.
Mm-hmm.
An honor system. Each of the genealogy databases compares the user's DNA data to all of the other data files in their database, then presents a list of DNA matches who share meaningful amounts of DNA. The match list includes the match's name or alias, how much DNA they share in centimorgans, and occasionally a link to a family tree that the match has voluntarily provided. Trash can. The genetic genealogy databases are siloed from one another, If you test an ancestry DNA and your sibling tests at 23andMe, you will not be matched to one another because you are not in the same database. GED Match is a third party site that functions as a genetic genealogy commons. A user can upload their raw DNA data file from their testing company and find matches to people who uploaded to GED Match from different companies. Like GED Match, Family Tree DNA, and MyHeritage also allow uploads of raw data files. Ancestry DNA and 23andMe
Do not.
do not.
Do not.
There should be a red line underneath that right there.
Yep. Do not.
So, broadly speaking, the more DNA two people share, the more closely they are related. The correlation is not perfect, though. Any given centimorgan amount can represent more than one possible relationship. The testing companies suggest probate relationships, but experienced genetic genealogists typically use the online shared CM tool shown at the right for a hypothetical match of 200 CM to see the mathematical probabilities of different relationships for a given centimorgan amount. Note that there are nearly 20 possible relationships listed for a match of 200 cm, which is considered a fairly close match. Fairly close. Statistical methods. Very interesting.
Hold on 1 second. Chalk
Yes.
baby, you're absolutely correct. It says same DNA company has to test both you to be pulling from the same database.
But you don't know because where's the reports? Where's the paperwork?
Mm-hmm.
You don't know.
And there's no warrant for it either.
And here's the link. Excuse me. Here's the link if you'd like this. If you don't have it, there's the link for it. And right now we are on page 6, and there's just a few more, and probably some of the end ones we probably don't even have to read. But this is number 14. Adoptees have used genetic genealogy DNA tests to identify their biological families for roughly 15 years now. The same methods used for people with unknown parentage can be used to identify forensic samples from a crime scene or unidentified human, unlike standard forensic STR tests, which are used to identify individuals, genetic genealogy testing identifies possible relatives. First, the genealogist attempts to build family trees for the DNA matches of the person of interest, starting with the closest matches. Relatively few users at GED Match and Family Tree DNA post their pedigrees there, so the genealogist must build trees for them. We attempt to identify the match using their screen name and email address. Then we search public records, social media, obituaries, news articles, and genealogy websites to build out their tree through their parents, grandparents, and so on. Most genetic genealogists build these so called research trees at Ancestry.com. The goal of building trees is to figure out how two or more matches are related to one another. For example, if the person of interest matches two people who share a great grandparent couple, making them second cousins to one another, the genealogist now knows which branch of their tree is relevant to the search. The person of interest could be descended from that couple, or the connection could be one or more generations further back through either their husband or wife in that couple. Once several of the DNA matches have been connected to one another, the genealogist must figure out how the person of interest fits into the tree of those matches, and we use age, sex, geographic location, and other circumstantial evidence alongside the DNA-based relationship predictions. A statistical tool called What Are the Odds can analyze multiple DNA matches. together to evaluate where the person of interest best fits into the tree based on the amounts of the shared DNA. What are the odds is not intended to give a definite answer. Rather, it points the genealogist towards the most likely branches in the tree for further research. The tool is also not appropriate for all circumstances. For example, it is not intended for populations that married within themselves for double cousins or when most of the matches are below 40 cm. The genealogist needs to do this for both the material and paternal sides of the person of interest pedigree.
Did you hear
Off
that? Did
what?
you did you read that? Both
Did,
maternal and paternal
mm-hmm.
sides.
Mm-hmm. Do it. They do it for both,
Mhm.
and often it involves building dozens of. I mean, this is crazy. All of this stuff, building dozens of trees and performing several "what are the odds"
Cookie.
analysis. We are looking for instances where a descendant in one DNA family tree married a descendant in another DNA family tree because those unions point to where the person of interest might fit into the tree. Often, the best we can do with the existing DNA matches is to focus on a set of cousins as candidates. Then, more DNA testing is required. This process can vary in complexity depending on the individual's starting point. In doing this type of research, the genetic genealogist will generate numerous documents to ensure an adequate paper trail. Paper trail. This paper
Mhm.
trail can.
There you go.
I
Ding
mean,
ding
come
ding
on.
ding ding.
There should be an adequate paper trail. The list of DNA matches the research tree with genealogical documentation, public record research for members of the DNA family, correspondent with DNA matches, descendant diagrams showing how the DNA matches are related to one another, and what are the odds analyses. This documentation is necessary and important for the following reasons. DNA matches sometimes hide their profiles. An error in the tree can mislead the genealogist, and the descendant diagrams and what are the odds analysis are usually updated repeatedly during a search. So there should have been a shit ton of paperwork.
Mhm.
As a genetic genealogist, I have learned about the power and the privacy implications of genetic genealogy. The tests themselves were designed to reveal biomedical information and can also reveal family secrets about the tester. In many cases, private information can be inferred about the DNA relatives of the tester as well. For those reasons, leaders in the genetic genealogy community developed standards that emphasize consent and privacy. I am aware the Department of Justice interim policy to limit when forensic genetic genealogy can be used and which databases are accessible to law enforcement.
Mhm.
It is possible for the databases to be utilized in a way that circumvents these core principles. Notably, I am aware of, wow, okay, A, a case in which the chain of custody failed and the wrong SNP profile was sent to the wrong client. Investigative genetic genealogist uploading SNP profiles to a forbidden database in violation of that company's terms of service and the Department of Justice interim policy.
Yeah, these are all
Forensic,
examples.
wow, yeah.
Examples.
Forensic genetic genealogy being used for a case that did not meet the Department of Justice threshold. Investigative genetic genealogists using security loopholes to see DNA kits who are opted out of forensic matching at GED Match and Family Tree DNA. A
Mhm.
case in which an S&P profile was performed on an innocent woman, a potential Fourth Amendment violation of her right to privacy, and uploaded to GED Match without her knowledge or consent.
Mhm.
Wow. So somebody even took this person's file or report or whatever the thing is that you can have, and they did it
To do a match.
for her to do a
Mm.
match.
But it
Wow.
wasn't. She was
But it wasn't
innocent.
her. But it wasn't her.
Mhm.
Having access to the data and methods used to identify someone will provide answers to compliance with Department of Justice policies, how a DNA sample was handled from the time of collection through its forensic genetic genealogy testing, the process of SMP creation, the use of the SMP profile, the use or lack thereof of loopholes and violations of terms of service to the various genetic genealogy databases. Lee Larkin, August 8th, 2023.
And there you have it, folks.
Wow. And here's her overview right here. Wow. And you definitely need to watch that CC Morgan on the Presumption podcast.